When you receive your new Fiber Artist Supply Yarn Swift, this is what it will look like. You have your Swift in a collapsed position with 6 pegs and 3 hex wrenches and instructions. So you can just tear this stretch wrap away. Okay, in this bag, like I said, you have six birch dowels with nicely rounded ends on them that fit pretty easily into the holes. 3 Allen wrenches. There's a 5mm, a 4mm, and a 5/32. So the arms are in the collapsed position with the holes facing down, okay? You're immediately gonna think that, oh, this one didn't get the holes drilled. No, that is something that we do so that customers don't just think that it opens up like this. You need to remove this cap nut here with the 5mm wrench, which is the bigger one, and lock these arms together, okay? And then what you do is set the arms back down on, there's a washer, and hand tighten this cap nut. Get it as, now I like that the nut we used is low profile, so it doesn't have a tendency to catch your yarn. There's nothing sticking up here if you ever have yarn that goes across the top. Okay, so you're gonna take your 4mm and your 5mm wrenches, and you're just gonna wanna tighten these. You don't need to cinch them down, you just need them tight enough to hold the arms to the hardware set, okay? Now we are ready to put our pegs in. Now where you put the pegs is going to depend on the size of your skein of yarn. So if you're unwinding a 2-yard skein, which is a popular size, then you're probably going to want to set the pegs at the outermost position. If you are winding a skein of yarn onto a ball winder or into a ball, you would just you would drape your yarn across this. If you needed to move one peg in to allow, for it to fit, you can move the pegs however you need to accommodate the skein. Now, for the case of this demonstration, I've got this ball of yarn, which obviously you're never going to wind a ball onto a yarn swift, but for the purpose of demonstration, I'm going to do it here. So we can show you how to wind onto the Swift, and then we will take this back into a ball with a ball winder. Okay, so there you have a 2-yard skein wound onto the yarn swift. So now what I'm going to do is wind this back onto a ball winder. So imagine if you were unwinding a skein of yarn, you would have draped, it probably wouldn't be sitting as tight as this, but you would have draped it over your yarn swift. And now I'm going to use a ball winder to wind it up. Now, of course, this is the Fiber Artist Supply ball winder. You don't need to use our ball winder. It does work well with the Swift. The first thing I'm going to do is set this yarn winder up with the yarn guide at the innermost position and look for the end of my yarn on my Swift. Now, of course, with our ball winder, there is no need to clamp it to a table, but it is more stable if you do. So that's sort of a personal preference. I typically just wind on the table. Sometimes I'll hold on to this yarn guide a little bit. to the end of our ball here, and I've got it connected, so it's gonna stop quick. Oh, just pulled it off actually. So there you go. We've wound a ball of yarn from a Swift onto a yarn ball winder, and that's how you use this product. Thanks. I don't suspect that most home users will ever need to do a complete teardown of this product. But should you decide that you absolutely need to take your yarn Swift apart, or if it's not spinning correctly, here is how you do it. You take your 5mm hex wrench or Allen wrench, your 4mm, put them in, twist them the opposite direction. Once you loosen up that top one, you can just boom, take these arms off. Take your washer off. This is the only tricky part here. You need to get your hex wrench into the hex bolt on the shaft collar and loosen it. Pick that off, take this through, boom, set that aside. Now, you may have fiber that's worked its way into this area. If that's what was causing your arms to not spin or your product to not function, clean it out, pick it out, clean it off. If any of the oil on these bearings did work its way out, you might want to wipe that off carefully, try to avoid getting it all over the place. Then to reassemble it, put that back through, drop your shaft collar back in place, tighten your hex screw. Now this shaft collar really should be sitting all the way down on the bearings. So there's no play in that, because that is what causes the walking. Don't let anybody tell you that's not true, because I know it's true. Put your washer on, and the washer is important. You don't want to lose that, because if you don't have the washer, then you're going to be putting pressure from the arms down onto the shaft collar, and you'll be tightening the shaft collar onto the bearings. If that didn't make any sense to you, it's okay. Just remember that you need that washer there. Same as before, wrenches in at the same time, give them a nice little, and you are ready to rock. Watch this baby spin so beautifully, it's gonna knock your socks off.